On January 20, 2021, 200 coho salmon eyed eggs were delivered. On February 5th, our first egg hatched, and by the end of that week, the rest followed. In March, we watched our little Alvins experience life outside the egg. They had their lunch sacks attached to them, but slowly those disappeared. By the end of March, the tank covers came off, our Alvins became fry, and the feeding began. Then tragedy struck. We started to notice a difference in color of our fry. Some were dark, others light. We learned from Rob, the Salmon Gulch hatchery manager, that the lighter colored fish were stressed. We checked our water quality, but tests showed the water was in excellent condition. What could be stressing out our little salmon fry? It was a mystery. We decided to set up our camera to show a different view. Instead of observing the fish, we started observing the tank and people around it. We solved the mystery, and the students learned a valuable and costly lesson about the fragility of an ecosystem. On our hands, we carry a variety of germs and bacteria that can be harmful to young fry. Even deadlier, ammonia from soap and hand sanitizer. Students learned that there are always people who ignore warnings and signs for whatever reason, such as keep your hands out of the tank. The consequences for our salmon were deadly. On May 10th, 2021, we released 7 out of 200 coho salmon fry. This was extremely sad and disappointing, but we still had a good year. We got to watch our little fish break out of their eyed eggs and become little Alvin. We got to see them begin swimming for the first time. We learned how to read the health of our tank by observing the coloring of the fish. Mostly, we learned how important it is to listen to and follow signs that are displayed and rules that are given to us, not because people don't want us to have any fun, but because they are there to protect someone or something. Rules are important. The quantity or number of salmon we released may be disappointing, but the quality of the 7 fry who managed to survive the harshest conditions and the quality of knowledge we gained in both the indoor classroom and the outdoor classroom will be etched into our memories. Here's a look at our outdoor classroom and salmon release. Thank you, Kate Morse, for an amazing day.
All right, Preston,
You're Anthony,
Layla.
right?
Yes.
So Preston, Layla, let's see if we can find your place.
What's he called? Okay, let's make room for Preston and Layla.
Okay, where do you live?
Uh-huh.
Oh, so you live the other
You're
direction.
somewhere. Grizzlies are probably around here, so you're probably about right there.
Cool, all right. And Layla, that's where you are as well?
Yep.
All right, Alana and PJ, do you know where we live? It is along the ocean. So we live down here in Cordova. So furthest away from where we are today. And when we came yesterday, we took a ferry up here to Valdez and then drove up to get, well, we're staying in Glen Allen, and then we drove back to get to you today. And so all of those places that we pointed are inside this dark blue line. Does anyone have a sense what this boundary is? Except for Valdez, yeah, none of us are live in Valdez though. We just have to go through there because that's where the roads and the ferry go. Does anyone want to take a guess? And I'll tell you, it has to do something with, okay, let's see, with water. A river, yeah?
Lake.
Which river in particular do you think? So Kenny Lake is an important part of it. That falls within the blue line, yeah. Copper Lake, is that at the top? And then what drains out of Copper Lake?
Copper River.
Copper River. And did we see the Copper River today?
Yep.
We sure did. And you see, where does the Copper River empty into the ocean? Does anyone, can you tell where it comes out into the ocean? That's up in the interior, so that's kind of its headwaters, so we call it. So it's not quite there. You got to trace that river, and it is red here because there's salmon that live in it, and that's what that reddish shows. Okay, I think Alana has, so a little close, so keep going down. Near the copper. You're a little far over, sweetie. So it comes down here. And here it is. Oh, it's labeled here, Copper River. and it empties. Let's pull this up a little bit higher, Molly. So it empties right down here, okay? So we call this, what's at the top of your body? Your head. All right, so we call this the headwaters. And then, does anybody know what all these small rivers and lakes are called that feed into the copper?
Watershed.
It's all together called, put together as a watershed. Raise your hand if you've ever heard the word tributary.
Just now.
Just all right. So these are all called tributaries, but they all drain into a common river, which happens to be the main river in this area, the Copper River. And so this whole area inside the blue line is called a watershed. Has anyone ever heard of the term watershed? Okay, so pretend that you're a shed and put a roof over your head. Excellent. All right. So I want you to imagine that this line is kind of what that roof line. Okay, and so remind me your name again. Junior. Okay, so if I was a raindrop falling on Junior's roof here, which way would I fall if I touched this side? Yeah, so opposite of what Anthony said. Yeah, so it's go towards me. So is the same thing true if water lands on this side of his roof, it also comes towards me, or does it go towards Anthony? Goes towards Anthony. So thank you, you can put your roof shed down. So that is how you can remember what a watershed is because this is kind of the peak of that roof, and all water that lands on the inside of that line will eventually, likely, drain into the Copper River. It might not go right away, it might be in a lake, and then it might go underground, or it might go into a river that feeds in. What was that river that connects to a bigger river? The term that we just said?
Yeah.
Tributary. Awesome, Junior. Thanks. Got to keep saying it so that then you'll remember it. So all these tributaries connect, and more water builds up and becomes the big river that empties out into the ocean. So does anyone know what that part of the watershed is called, where the river and the ocean meet? You don't? So it's a river delta. What kind of water is in the river? Is it, well, if you were to take a sip of it, would it taste like the ocean or would it taste different than the ocean? So the ocean has salt water, but the river has... It tastes different. What would it taste like? Would it taste salty, or how would you describe it? Fresh water. Yeah, and so this is a special place where the salt and the fresh water mix, and that's called the estuary. So those are all parts of our watershed, but even though we live so far apart, we're all still sharing the same watershed. And then what else needs that whole watershed to be able to live its life cycle if it's not growing up in your classroom? What are we here to release today? Salmon. So can someone explain to me how salmon need a whole watershed to live their life? Like, why do they need to be able to live in the ocean and the fresh water? What does that mean? What does that have to do with?
When they're in the ocean, they go into
Okay, so they go into what kind of water? Fresh or salt? And do they lay babies, or what do they start as? Eggs. Okay. And then when they came to your classroom, what did they look like?
Eggs.
Eyed eggs. Yeah, so they had an eye. And is that in fresh or salt water? It's still fresh water. Okay. And then what happened?
They turn into fly.
There was something before that. What is it called when they carry that lunchbox around on their belly?
Yeah.
Alvin? Yeah, Alvin. Yeah, so they were Alvin, and then they turn into what we have today. Fry. And then they just stay the rest of their lives in the freshwater, right? Yeah, they turn into big fish. So what motivates you the most? If you were to be here and there was empty cupboards and nothing to eat, or you could look down river and know that there was a big ocean that was lined with lots and lots of food to eat, where would you choose to go? Where there's no food or lots of food? Lots of food. So it's not that there's no food here, but there's a lot more food in the ocean. And so salmon have adapted to then want to go out to the ocean. So before they can just jump right into the ocean, though, they have to be prepared for how's the water going to change. They're in fresh water, but what's going to happen in the ocean? It's going to be salt water. So where's that place where that fresh and salt water mix? What's that word again I just said? Estuary. Junior, you're like a magnet in that brain. Awesome. So the estuary is where it's a little bit salty, a little bit fresh, and there's a life stage of the salmon that they are when they're there. Does anybody remember what comes after fry in the life cycle?
King salmon.
I wish they all turned into king salmon, but that's a species. It rhymes with like bolt, like a lightning bolt. Smolt. Smolt. So smolt is when they are getting used to the salty water, and then there'll be adult salmon out in the ocean, and then they just live out there forever and eat all that they can eat for the rest of their lives, right? Is that what happens? Do salmon stay in the ocean for the rest of their lives?
Trick question.
No, I'm trying to. Gotta stick with me, because I'm not gonna say the right thing all the time. You need to tell me what you know. So yeah, so then they'll head into the ocean. They'll be adults, and then what are they gonna do?
Come back to the first water and lay more eggs.
That's right. And then they go back out to the ocean, because that's where all the food is, right?
Yeah.
What happens to them after they have their offspring, their eggs?
Think about Valdez. What do you see happening in Valdez?
Fishing.
Well, people are fishing, so they die that way, but they also come back and they lay their eggs, and then they die. What is that strategy all about? Why do they do that? Where was there more food, in the river system or the ocean? The ocean. So they brought all that food in their bodies, and so the best strategy that they've come up with in order to make sure that there's food back in the rivers for their babies and their future is what? To die. Because what happens when they die? What happens to bodies when they die? They rot, and what's another word for that? They decompose. And so what happens when something decomposes? Is it like a mummy and stays that way forever, or does it?
Like they turn into bones.
Like we're composted, and we're the fish are composted and go back into the system to feed the system and feed the future. It even feeds the trees, feeds future babies. So cool. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood why I came from Cordova up to you, is because we are all, even though our neighborhoods are very far apart, and even some of your neighborhoods are far apart from each other, we all share the same watershed. Does anybody here like to eat salmon? Okay. Yeah, I do too. Does anybody here have someone whose job, anyone that like does guiding or goes fishing, that has a job related to salmon, work at a hatchery? All right.
We were like at this boat place, and
So there's people whose jobs are connected to salmon. There's people who like to eat salmon all winter long, so that your survival is linked to salmon. Is there anything else in this watershed that likes to eat salmon? Bears. What else? Eagles. Birds. Otters. Hawks, probably. Yeah, eagles. Trees like to eat salmon.
Beaver.
My garden.
Gardens like salmon, so trees eat salmon because
Like some.
eagles and bears, they might drag carcasses into the woods, and we've maybe next fall I hope to come back up again, and we can do some activities specific to spawning and all those nutrients that come up from the ocean and feed the trees and feed us. So we'll save that for another time so that we can get to what I promised, which is into chest waders. So I'm just gonna. What you'll do is you'll take off your street shoes, okay? So no shoes inside your chest waders. And then you'll slip your sock foot into the bottom. Oh, it feels like I have something else that's in there. And then I have special boots for you. These are called wading boots. These are my wading boots, but I have lots of other pairs, so we'll get some that are reasonably sized for you. And these shoes, while they might look like a pair of hiking boots, they actually have vents in them that allow water to flow in and flow out. So that's why you're going to want to wear these, so that you don't ruin the shoes that you have.
And then I noticed you put your foot right in your other shoe, not on the ground.
I did, yeah. So that you want to limit how much you're walking around on the ground, because remember we talked about how easily we could put holes in our waders. Okay, and so then everyone will, if you need help tying your shoes, let us know, but you'll lace them up. And the other thing that I wanted to emphasize is that you'll see that there's elastic on most of these pairs, and so I'm going to put that over the top of my waders, and either there's a hook or you can just hook it to your laces, and that'll help protect my boots and my laces from getting caught on things. So take my other shoe off. Helps your chest waders. Should you accidentally pop your chest waders, it slows the flow of water down. And so you'll want to have it's called a wading belt. So Not only does it make it look fashionable, but it'll make them a little bit safer, okay? And this is all we need to do for the rest of the day.
Yeah. They are set.
I'm going near the rock. Oh, this is too tight. Too tight, too tight, too tight. Like, too tight. I'm reaching to this thing.
All right, everybody. So before we release our fish, hopefully we won't catch our fish, but we're gonna set some minnow traps because the longer they're in the water, the more chance we have of catching something. So you can see that there's cones on here. So I've used some treated. First of all, I got a permit from Fish and Game to do this, okay? And then I have some salmon eggs that I treated so that we're not spreading disease. And then where are fish's eyes? Are they in the front of their heads like ours?
No, they're
On the side. That's right. So they see differently than we see. So fish can be like, oh, it smells good, and they can bounce off of here to get into the trap. But then it's really hard when your eyes are on the side of your head to find that hole to get back out. So that's how they get trapped. So the key is you want this part to be sitting as flat in the bottom as you can. You don't want it like this. You want it like that, okay? And then make sure it's tied off so that we can retrieve it. Okay. And everybody, sure. Yeah, you know, but I need you to remind me your name. Brandon, can you go on the other side of that dock there carefully? Let's set one over in that little pocket over there, okay?
Can I set one, please?
Sure, absolutely, especially with manners like that. I would love for you to.
Try this.
What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to release the fish first so that they can maybe carry on and swim out of our way, hopefully. And how we're going to do that is we have 7 fish, so I have 7 cups. We'll put one in each cup. Do you think that you should take your fish when it's time to release and go like that?
That will hurt them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they'll get accidentally, it would take. Would you like to put boots on?
Yeah, so has anyone ever driven past Paxton on your way up north to Fairbanks maybe? Anyone gone up that way? So there's a hatchery there, the Golcana Hatchery, and they release salmon fry into some remote lakes, and they actually have an airplane that has tanks in the front that they fill with salmon fry for releasing. And when they were learning how to do that, they're like, you know what, we're going to need these fish to be nice and close to the water so they don't have a very far drop. Then all of the fish died because they all belly flopped in the surface of the water. So they learned that they actually had to fly a little higher in the air so that the fish had time to go nose down before hitting the water. Regardless, aerial dropping is not, you gotta learn. You don't want to learn by killing off the remaining 7 fish that you've worked hard to raise. And so I'm going to pretend that this rock is a fish, and so it'll have some water in it, right? And so when it's time to release it, you're going to want to find an area that's like we haven't picked up too much sediment because they don't love to have all that little stuff in the water. And then you'll just put the cup in the water and kind of sink it and then release it. That way sometimes the fish are confused, they don't know what to do, and then you pull it out. And so that fish, that rockfish, was never dropped. It had its chance to swim out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get the fish first. Okay. Thanks, sweetie.
Bye.
Okay, so do you want to release it all together or one at a time? How about we do it all together?
How about we do it all together? So hang on to it, okay?
So you can have a good look at it while it's in the cup, say your goodbyes, maybe wish them well on their way through the tributaries, down to the estuary, through the watershed.
He's swimming at the top so he wants to jump. That's what he always does.
Oh, that's right. Okay. This is you. Oops, swam right through the hole in the corner. There. Ow, that's the white one, right?
See your fish, okay? Right.
It's down here.
There we go.
Yeah, don't let those
those birds get them.
Nice. Brandon, let's see your fish.
Okay, that Hannah, you can have that.
All right. Huh?
You should buy Brandon.
Is that your fish's name?
Yeah, and
Cool. What's yours, Sakai?
mine's Jackson.
Jackson. All right.
They switched the fish. He tried to
Hannah, let's see your fish.
He's not so happy.
What's your fish's name?
I have no idea.
No idea.
Damn it, Hannah.
You could call it Hannah.
Nope.
Nope.
Look, he's looking at me.
Nope.
Hey, Elijah, let's see your fish. Right.
Alright.
What's your fish's name, Elijah? 2.0. Wow.
I gotta get my camera on and capture
Tom and Jerry.
Hey, Nehemiah, let's see your guys' fish. What's your guys' name? Tom and Jerry. All right. It's a good name. I love it. Guppy Jr.
And hold up your fishies.
Look at me one more time.
Look at your fishies. The strongest of the strong. Thanks. Hang on just a minute. Alright, we're ready. Yeah, see you soon. Can some of you face this way? I mean, your butts look great, but look at those faces saying, alright, nice. Swim free, fishies. Tell them to swim free. Good luck.
What did we do?
All right.
I see mine.
Where's he at, Brandon?
Where'd he go?
All right.
How am I supposed to know not to help you with somewhere over here? No, guess what? My fish just literally went like. And that's Tom and Jerry.
It's like finally some
As
space.
you're walking through here, where are our fish? In here, so let's try not to run and stop through here, right? Even though they probably swim off.
Mine went to the bottom.
All right. Good job, Preston.
Awesome, thank you. I will read. So what are the fish eating?
Rocks. I mean,
Rocks? Rock soup? What kind of food?
food, man.
Oh. They actually don't eat plants. They don't
eat
eat
algae.
snails.
Puppy does.
Algae is a type of plant. They actually eat macroinvertebrates. What's that?
Macaroni.
Almost macaroni.
Yeah, but it was like a microwave thing.
So if you're using a microscope, what are you looking at? Are the things you're looking at big or small?
Big.
In a microscope?
Small.
Small. They're micro. They're really small. So macro is the opposite of micro. So macro means it's
Big.
bigger. Yeah. And so what's vertebrate mean? What does vertebrate what does a vertebrate have? A backbone, yeah. So an invertebrate,
He's right there.
if it's an invertebrate, does it have a backbone?
No.
No, it does not. So what might we find in the water that doesn't have a backbone? Leeches. They don't.
Where's he at? All right.
That's my fish. He's like, I don't want to leave. He's like, I just want to stay here in this calm place.
Here's the snail. You want to see the snail? Yeah, so you keep passing them around so everyone can see. And please don't open the lid. Everyone's doing a good job of just looking. So these are all examples of benthic macroinvertebrates. These are always a favorite. This one's a little bit dry, but there's a segmented worm.
They eat
So those look like shrimp. They're called amphipods.
What's it look like? It's like a
You're a fat bum. Oh,
Oh,
look
wow.
at this tiny little guy. It's a bug. I don't like bugs. No, look at that little spiders. No, look at that little tiny guy. You see that? Tiny guy.
Okay, let's see it. And you find all of these guys in the lake?
And if those aren't cool enough, check out this one.
I've never seen anything like that.
These are giant. What
Whoa, what is that?
Look how big this is. What
So these are called predaceous diving beetles.
Oh!
They're pretty darn cool. I just don't like to be in the water.
We're looking in the water. So look out here and tell me where you think would be a good spot to find insects.
Oh, wait!
Under the rocks, excellent. Where else?
On top of the water.
Some of them, sometimes water striders are on top. You might, under the docks, be able to find some. What's something else that insects might use to as cover for protection? Grass, yeah. So I'll demonstrate.
I need a rock.
Oh man.
So if you're one of the people that's using a net, you can kind of work in a team. Brandon, do you want to come with me?
I want to use
It's not really flowing water, but I'm going to ask Brandon and Hannah to kind of kick around the rocks a little bit. Maybe that'll like free up some insects, and then I'm going to do some sweeps through there, maybe collect a few rocks. Excellent. And take a look to see if anything. Oh my goodness, look, there's things swimming. Look at this one right here.
Oh my, that's huge. So what if that's just a part of the salmon?
It's either a stonefly or mayfly. I have to pick it up. Oh, look at that. Oh my gosh, look at that beautiful specimen. How many tail fins or tail? 4. I think there's 3. Yeah.
I take one.
Oh, and there's an empty snail shell there.
Look at how much he found in there.
Yeah, and that was just a demonstration.
Nice.
That is pretty darn cool.
Oh, take that.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll take turns with nets. If you don't have a net, another good way to look is just to go find some big rocks and flip them over and see if you can find anything living on them. But maybe what you can do is you can have somebody take a turn to go and do some scooping, and then somebody else can be there. And I'll get out some more tools. I have some ice cube trays, and so you can kind of create a little bit of like you can sort your insects. And so maybe you put all the stoneflies in one ice cube tray, and all those little things that look like shrimp can go in another one. And then we'll do some show and tell so that everybody can see what the other groups are finding. Does that sound good? All right, we want to see what's in there? Yep, because there's a cup down there.
So,
Collecting everything.
Yeah. Let's go. Grab stuff with your hands. Like
So that you can warm up.
I just spun him around.
Well, being in the ice water is going to make it even colder. So why don't you join up one of the teams here? There's a whole other bucket right there. I think all the nets are gone right now. Because they've got some more satellites. Or,
And is that pollen that's in there? Not water.
what the?
Oh, we found a little blob. Look, these are blobs. We found a blob.
Squish it.
Wow, what is it?
My name's Kate. I love the enthusiasm, but just so you remember. Oh, that's an egg mass. You should put, go ahead and put that in an ice cube tray.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is like amazing. You'll be like, no, this is, it's wiggling around, so it,
they don't play with them.
yeah, no, it's a cold day, but okay. At least the water was open. So little species that are considered intolerant to pollution living here. Has anyone ever heard the term a canary in a coal mine? Do you know how coal miners, do you know where coal is located? How do people get coal? In the ground, and in mines. And so, does anybody know how they used canaries in the coal mines?
I do too.
So, they used to they would take a cage in with a canary, because canaries make a lot of noise, thank you, so they can sing a lot. And if that canary stopped singing and died, what do you think the coal miners did? Leave, because if that air quality was poor enough to kill off the canary, do you think it's going to be good for the miners?
No.
No, and there were things that they couldn't smell or detect right away to know that they were in danger. So those canaries were a signal that there was an issue with the air quality. So we call these invertebrates. There are canaries of the coal mine and the lake. So they're an indicator for us about the water quality. Does anybody have any questions? There's just like a million billion things that we can talk about. How do fish get their oxygen?
Water.
They get it from the water with their gills. Okay, so how do invertebrates get their oxygen?
Just like trees get our oxygen. Basically why.
So some of these insects have gills. The predaceous diving beetle is one of my favorite. So they're kind of like a scuba diver.
My favorite.
How does a
is the
scuba
one
diver
with
get
two
oxygen?
things. That's my favorite.
The boatmans, yes. They do the same, similar thing. So boatmans do something like the beetle, like the diving beetles. They don't have gills, but they actually will make, has anyone ever seen a scuba diver? They've got the tanks with the oxygen, right?
Yeah.
So then they will, they can, the beetles, they will collect an air bubble, and beetles actually do it. Here, let me show you. Okay, this is just a really good picture of it, so.
Wow.
It's a butt bubble. So they were able to collect, they come up to the surface and they can collect a bubble of oxygen, like a scuba tank, and it happens to be located by their butt, and that is how they breathe when they're underwater. So periodically they have to be able to come to the surface, collect another bubble for their butt, and then they can dive around and breathe for a while. So if you want to, for those of you that are really, really enjoying checking out these invertebrates, you might try to see, do you see gills? Do those boatmen, do they have a bubble that they're carrying around? And there's those little magnifiers there that it's super funny. Look at, or what are we looking at in this collection that we have here in order to determine if we have good water quality in the lake? What is it that we were looking at?
Insects.
Yeah, insects, but what about them? Was it the total number that we found, Elijah?
The amount of it.
The amount, and also which species, right? Because some species are good and are able to live in polluted water, and some species are not able to live in polluted water. So the other thing that we can do is we can actually collect some water quality measurements. And so we'll work in two teams. Ms. Nelson and Ms. Hodges each have the data sheets. So what are some things that we might measure about water that could influence our fish, the habitat for your fish? What are some? What's that? Temperature, something that's going to be an indicator of the health of the water and whether it's good or bad for certain species. What else? So what about, we were talking about the air bubbles and the gills, and what are all those things related to? What do they need the air bubble for? Why do they have gills?
Because they need it for dirty water.
No, oxygen. Excellent. Yeah, so there's oxygen. And so are they getting the same kind of oxygen that we're getting out of the air? Or where is the oxygen?
Inside the water.
It's in the water. Some of them will come to the surface and get air oxygen, but fish and the ones that have gills, it's called dissolved oxygen. Okay, so we're going to measure temperature and dissolved oxygen. I'm going to explain to you how these tools work. Yep.
I think dissolved oxygen, when they get water and then it just empties out the water and air comes in.
So anytime that there's a waterfall, like what did you have in your tank that was putting oxygen in the water?
A filter.
No.
No, the filter is cleaning the tank. Bubbles.
The thing that had the bubbles.
Who had Bubbles 2.0? Whose fish was Bubbles 2.0? Okay, so yeah, Bubbles is like, it's not Finding Nemo. Bubbles! So that's all how the oxygen is getting put into water. So in nature, there's not bubblers like you have in your tank. In nature, there's things like turbulence is what we call that. So a waterfall or churning, that's all putting oxygen into the water. And so there's something else. Can anybody look at this tool and see what it measures besides temperature?
Why is it trying
No, it's not going to measure the length. It's not a measuring tape. There's two letters on it. pH, excellent. Does anybody know what pH is a measure of? No, that's a good, really good guess. I love it.
He's our car
throwing
guy.
out your ideas, so I like it. All right, so it's pH is parts of hydrogen is what that stands for. So has anybody ever had lemon that got in a cut in your hand? Or have you experienced like you ever seen a movie where the bad guy falls into a big vat of acid? Like what happens?
They die.
They die, but do you know why?
the bad disease. Bad disease. It melts their body and there's lots of blood and stuff.
So melts, it dissolves their body. So, and I used the term. I said it was a big vat of, what was that? Acid, yeah. So pH is a measure of parts of hydrogen. I think we just had like a little fish jump there.
Yeah. Fish or something dropping into it.
So pH is a measure of how acidic or how basic something is. It's something that you'll learn more about as you get into high school. And has anyone ever heard of the class called chemistry?
I think.
Chemistry, yeah. So pH is something that has to do with the chemistry of the water. Which is all oxygen. And so this is a little chemistry project. So there's instructions, and this is a project in and of itself. Who here knows how to follow instructions?
Not me.
Uh-oh. All right, both of you are in a group with one of the people with their hands up, okay? So it even gives you pictures in addition to written instructions. So you'll follow them. You'll put some of the lake sample in here. And then in this box, these are really fragile, so I need you to be very careful and take care of my equipment. I'll show you in a second what happens with that. So in here, these are glass, and they have a point on the end of them. So, and inside are chemicals that are going to react with the oxygen that's in your water sample. So you'll put this into the water sample, and if you've ever had a pencil point that you've tried to break, that's what you're going to do. You just kind of like bend it against the bottom till the very end of this snaps. And then magic, or capillary action happens, and it sucks water into here, and then there's going to be a little bit of air bubbles, so you'll mix it, I think it says 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes, and it's maybe going to turn a color, and then that color is going to be related to the amount of oxygen that's in here. So then we go back to this kit, and we see what color blue does it look the most like. And so do you think...
6.3.
6.3.
Okay, 6.3.
6.3?
Okay, so now, what is what's the top number? Top number is the pH. Okay.
What am I doing now?
It's just 65. 65.
No, there's a decimal. So let's just
Put 70.
Put 7. Yes, just number 7. Because there's another decimal. Okay, so now we need the salinity.
They would like you to go down. Layla, you can come over.
How much salt you think's in here?
Well, I think in salinity, I would.
How much salt do you think is in here, guys?
If I want to taste it right,
Brandon. I mean, hi.
maybe if I were to say shelter observation site 1, site 2, site 3.
What?
How much?
7.
How much large woody debris is there?
Okay, so how much large woody debris is there? Boys, large debris. Is there lots of woody debris? Moderate, sparse, or none? How much large woody debris is in there?
A lot.
So let's say abundant. Okay, how about large boulders? Abundant. Okay. Are there undercut banks?
No.
No. But there is a pier.
Miss Hodges' team, this is going to be your site 3 right here, okay?
For what?
Yeah, I collected it from a certain spot.
For what?
Okay, let's finish with this one. E-R. Okay. So now we
Elijah,
need...
what are you doing? Uh-oh. I'll get a new water sample from site 3.
He doesn't even realize what he did.
Who dumped it? I was like this, and I was like,
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So
Where's that from?
it's from site 2.
All right. What was the reading? What did it read on the... Did you compare it?
No, banks on the.
oh no.
Let's compare it to this and see what it is.
This one's more darker.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me check it the trap? Oh, nothing's flopping around. Okay, go check that one. And can you untie it and bring it back here too, please? Oh, we got a red wiggler. Is she, there it is.
Oh, just can I see her?
Nope, right it down.
Set it up.
A little worm. Nothing? Okay, we'll bring it back over here.
And watch your hand.
This could go really fast. Oh, here's another one. You got here. Oh, don't be gentle, guys.
You see what she's got, Preston?
So now we'll take the bucket. Can you carry that bucket of water over to the next minnow trap? Yeah, we're headed that way
Did you catch anything, Kai?
When Hannah was a toddler, I think that's about her for these stuff. Just from taking stuff away.
Yeah, look, what is that? It's a fish! It's a fish! It's a dead fish!
Don't pull it out of there yet.
It's a dead fish! Calm down!
You gotta take some of the fish.
We're not ready yet. Put it back.
Leave it in the water for a minute. Okay.
Elijah, put the tank back in the water. You're getting ahead of things here.
You're supposed to listen for instructions, not make up your own.
You want me to hold those? Sure. Oh, gross. That was squishy. I don't know what it was.
Don't want to know.
It looked like a pebble.
Oh, that's an egg thing, isn't it?
Probably.
I'll bet.
You want to put these over there?
It's an egg, guys. Grab it. Where is it? It's right there. It's dead. Ah! Oh! Got it. Let's go. Oh, touch it. Oh!
Dissection time.
Oh, freaking.
Feed it to Guppy.
I just want to let you know that today is very special for me because I have not been able to get out in chest waders with a bunch of young, fine folks like yourself. And so to be able to spend a beautiful day at a beautiful location, thank you, Ms. Nelson, for helping to arrange this. And thanks, Ms. Hodges, for taking on the salmon tank and all the responsibility and helping make sure that we could do this trip together because it was a lot of fun for me. I hope anyone here have fun? All right. So I have some stickers. Well, even though I heard that there might be some really big trout in this lake, so even though we didn't, well, we saw one. Some of the education program that I've been doing is funded by an organization who focuses all on trout. So I have some trout stickers for you. But a special one is that a student that I used to work with, who's now graduated from college and is a graphic designer down in Idaho, did a design for me to use for our salmon tank projects. And so it says, we're inspiring salmon stewards one fry at a time. So hopefully your chance to take care of salmon and learn about what helps and hurts salmon will help you grow to continue to be good stewards of this resource that we have in the watershed, because we all depend on it and we're all responsible. Because do salmon just live in one location? No, they live throughout the whole watershed. So with that, before you get your stickers though, we'll start maybe down at this end of the line. Thanks, honey. And I want to hear one thing, two things. One of them I wanted to hear is something new that you learned. And then the second thing I want to hear is something that you really enjoyed about today. Because it just helps me know what sticks and then what you really like about adventures like this. So sure, we'll go with volunteers. How about that? Go ahead.
Is this the last week of school? No.
Next week? Next week the last week of school?
Let's listen. That's not what we're...
Look at the clouds and also finding insects.
All right, and what's something that you learned today?
I learned that that there's different species that in the water that can be exploring.
So like the invertebrates, were some of those new to you? Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. Who would like to go next? Isaac? So there's your trout stickers and a salmon sticker. Go ahead, Elijah.
I figured that a bunch of insects, even dragonflies, live in water and they can hide all sorts of fishes.
Cool.
Are they actually stickers or are they just?
These are stickers, yep.
Oh, then how am I supposed to take it off?
Well, you'll figure that out. It looks like this one, like it has a little split in the back. Okay, but Elijah, what was fun about today?
That we put on the waders and then we went in.
Awesome.
Water.
Excellent. Hannah?
The new thing that I learned is that I didn't know that there was a different type of dragonfly that can live underwater.
It's just an early life stage, so it's all the dragonflies that you know, but yeah, you didn't know they started in the water. Cool.
Yeah, and my favorite thing today was go into the water and getting all sorts of the bugs.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. All right. Remind me. Preston, thank you, Preston. Go ahead. What did you learn today?
I learned that the different species in the water.
What's one of the new ones that you hadn't seen before?
But don't whip it up yet.
Excellent. Dragonfly nymph. That's
in the truck.
And what was fun about today?
That we could release the salmon.
Awesome. That was pretty cool. I agree. Sweet. Thank you. Anyone?
Yes, me?
Yeah.
I like the part about the beetle.
The butt bubbles.
It was kind of funny, and I like the
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you.
Butt bubbles.
Yeah. Kai?
Butt bubbles.
It was very fun because we use nets to catch bugs
Uh-huh.
and we learn things about them.
What was the name of that insect that you kept calling a fish? Remember that? It was the you were the stud. It rhymes with stud.
Stud.
He was the scud stud.
Kai the Scud Stud. I love it.
That's his new name.
A few more people that I haven't heard from. Something that you learned and something that was fun. I don't know why. I'm sorry, Brandon. I learned that your name is Brandon, and hopefully I won't forget it as much next time. You're very tolerant of my inability to learn names on the first day.
Okay, then which one's Kai?
Oh, Kai. You're okay.
I am a Kai. What's up? Nobody knows my name. Okay, which one's Kai? I learned about new insects in the water. I'm covering it up.
It was fun.
What's that? A sticker. A sticker.
I'm getting
No, it's
related.
not a salmon.
It's actually a
Rainbow trout.
name.
Rainbow trout.
Yeah.
The rainbow.
Yeah, she's testing you. That's right. She's a future educator right here.
My tablet. Oh, she's teaching us. Okay. Now we go to the teacher.
I learned that you could just walk into the water and dip a net in and come up with all sorts of creatures in there. That was pretty cool. And the best part of today was watching Anthony fall into the water.
All right, once we have our minute trap set, we'll gather and maybe release our fish, your fish. Whoa, 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 whoa!
You're gonna be cold, buddy.
Oh, stop having fun. What's something new that you learned today? What did you learn about chest waders? Can you swim in them? No. Should you go into water over the top of them?
No.
I know.
You can go in the water. You can walk on water.
It's true. It's really good to learn because if you're going to go fishing and you wade out into the stream, you're going to want to remember that it's good to move carefully. What was something that was fun about today? Compared to sitting in class at school, what was fun about today?
Why did you give me this?
So you could look at it. I mean, I saw you smile a time or two, so I think there was some fun.
That's what I was talking when you showed us the bugs.
Oh, the predaceous diving beetle. Awesome. Thanks. I'm glad I brought them then. Sir? Anything new that you learned today?
We learned that the thing between the freshwater and the saltwater is called a what?
The dirty water.
Starts with an E.
Try your estuary. There we go. And what was fun about today? One sec, yeah. When he fell in? Okay.
No, I don't want one more.
All right, Layla, what was your favorite thing about today?
If I get one more sticker, then everybody has to get enjoy about my favorite was watching him.
All right.
Watching him, yes. All right.
What was that?
So Layla said that watching everybody out in the water, is that fun? Uh-huh. Did you learn anything? Did you learn about bugs? Yes. All right.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Layla. You got your boot on some chicken, didn't you?
I did.
All right. Well, does anybody remember what those smaller rivers are called that feed into the larger river? They're rivers and streams, but they're called something when they feed. No, the watershed is all of them together. Excellent. That was an important term. To kind of contribute to the rest of the water. Tributaries, yeah. So whatever tributary you live near, or whatever water body you live near, remember it's all connected in this great watershed. And so what happens in one part of the watershed has an impact throughout the rest of the watershed. So I'm going to take care of as much of the watershed as I can and hope that you'll do the same so that we can keep fish happy and healthy and in our bellies for many years to come. So have a good rest of your school year, a good, very safe summer. Those of you who enjoyed time in chest waders, should you want to come back, there's a program. There's a lot of kids at Kenny Lake School who have been a part of the Copper River Stewardship Program, and we take groups of kids from Cordova and the Copper Basin, and we go for a 10 or 11-day trip that usually involves river rafting, definitely involves chest waders, definitely get muddy and have fun. So I hope to see all of you someday on that adventure with me. So awesome. I just thought I'd do that.